Donald Trump is trying to take Greenland at all costs. And right now, Trump is not only showing this obsession he has with that territory, but he's also warning that if he doesn't take it, a third world war will come. President Trump claims that China or Russia will do it, whether they like it or not. He says we're going to have Greenland. Donald Trump, now with a more aggressive tone, during a meeting with oil executives at the White House, made this first warning. Well, today there is a meeting in which the first diplomatic confrontation takes place. Basically, what Denmark is saying is that we can agree on anything except giving up the territory. In other words, anything but that. And at this moment, while Donald Trump is trying to make his moves regarding Greenland and the issue of Iran, and one of the things that resonates the most is precisely that point, not the one about World War III. A warning that right now might just seem like another Trump exaggeration. But also, at the end of the day, you're playing with fire, you're playing with powers. Some of them, well, that already have power or are in the process of getting it. Like in the case of Iran. So does the move that's coming regarding Greenland have anything to do with the supposed Golden Book? No? Don's goal, which he insists is essential for the project. Now, when they've asked him, well, show us the project, obviously that project doesn't exist. I mean, it's only in Trump's mind and maybe in the minds of some other advisors who have told him, well, just say it's Don's goal, and that'll settle the matter. In the end, Don's goal. It only protects the United States. Denmark will ask, why give up territory just for your protection? I understand that.
It's really far away, and
besides, it's really far away, right? Like they said somewhere, we don't want Russia as a neighbor, they say. Well, there's Russia and the United States. They have a difference of 50 kilometers, they're neighbors, and they always have been. And this is what he's talking about. The protests have been starting, and the Prime Minister of Denmark, Medford, who reportedly responded firmly, said, "This is a decisive moment. We will defend our values, but we will also defend the Arctic." He repeats on social media that Greenland is not for sale and won't be surrendered under pressure. The order that Danish soldiers have had for several days now is to attack. In case they come or see any movement, they are to act against any threat to their sovereignty. Exactly, and there are several movements that draw attention regarding Greenland. But one of the points that has also been drawing attention today is this comment made by Dmitry Medvedev, which basically, let's see if we can put it here.
I'd call him the troublemaker.
The troublemaker. Dmitry Medvedev, the former president in Russia, who, well, sends a rude and strong message. Not exactly.
I'm going to say it. Apparently he says they'll shit their pants and abandon Greenland. The former Russian president Medvedev makes a prediction about the situation between the United States and Greenland. So basically, Denmark is going to hand over Greenland. It's going to give Greenland to the United States.
He says, will they crap their pants? Is the phrase Medvedev uses. Always very subtle he is.
Elegant, very elegant.
Correct. Before we continue, greetings to Sita Menchu. How are you? Good evening to Gires and Francisco Arce who are here with us. Thank you very much to the whole community joining the live stream. Greetings to Tapatia Plus and of course to Blanca Barceló. Well, to the whole Liceo community, how have you been? A quick pause just to thank all the community members of the channel, the community that supports us with a super, so you know that you make this news channel possible. Thank you very much also to everyone who is subscribed. Obviously, listen to the stance of, the stance of NATO is to stay silent, said this guy Mas Rude, the person in charge of NATO. The other one, today I'm going to talk about it in this speech. Well, Cantinflas didn't even come close, right? I mean, he says everything and nothing at the same time, so the certainty of what he says and what he actually said. So what was the resolution to this problem between NATO countries? Because the United States says it doesn't even care if NATO is left out. We'll discuss that later, but Trump claims he doesn't care if people notice or feel left out. And you say, well, these are two things that could be, right now it sounds really good, like, oh, look how brave, right? But those future things could look very bad, exactly.
Yes, they're doing exercises now. Sweden and France sent soldiers. But, well, another interesting thing is that Russia, just like Medvedev, Putin has also taken advantage of this to create tension in the area. The other day, he reminded us that there are Russian ships, that there are Chinese ships operating near Alaska and Canada. And, well, it shows that there really could be this conflict, that Trump is already getting involved, and that's why he needs to act tough.
Here's what I can tell you to put this in perspective. Well, if there is obviously an interest in the Arctic from China, Russia, and so on, then obviously, just as there is from the United States, there is also from Europe. I mean, many countries are interested in the Arctic, but it will be decades before it becomes useful, before it really becomes important. And in all of this, there is no need to rush in any way because of this issue, even less so. I mean, the most logical thing is to have NATO or to have this, well, a piece of ice, a giant piece of ice. Well, obviously, it's better to have NATO. I mean, there you can have bases directly with your potential enemies just around the corner. If they take away all those bases, well, let's see how things would be there. Basically, their defense would become very complicated. Obviously, no, I don't know what to say, all these things. But here, there is either a break with NATO, and that's the real purpose.
That's the excuse.
This is just an excuse.
Or is there something else about Greenland that interests you?
But for me, it's more from that side because, well, all his life in science, I mean, Trump has always been against NATO. Basically, this would just be like the final excuse, the final one, to put an end to this once and for all. With this, yes.
He doesn't want to fight Russia, right? For example,
he said it from the very first term, from the very first request as soon as he took office. One of his promises was to cancel NATO, so why didn't he cancel NATO when he was president the first time? Because all the military stood firm, just like they said. What are you talking about? I mean, you can't just leave. I mean, we're the leaders of NATO. I mean, we're the ones who are in charge, right? So if we're the ones in charge, then the power is ours. If we leave, who will fill that power vacuum? And that power can also be used against us. So, I mean, it didn't really make much sense this time because now there's another issue too. And obviously what's happening is important. And that, yes, I see it more as if we're talking about potential risks of a third world war. I don't see it in Greenland, I see it in Iran, in what's happening with Iran. In any case, at this moment right now, I think that's the part with the most, let's say, potential risk. Obviously, there's also Ukraine and Russia. But from what we can see, as we observe the Ayatollah's people, where things could get most intense is over there. Let's go with that. Where there are already signs, truly, of a conflict is specifically toward Iran, since we are seeing how, well, they just mentioned that the airspace is already closed, and that's all that's known about the issue. How? What's happening? Because obviously the conflict has already escalated to a level where they don't want anyone near there. Obviously, when they closed the airspace, immediately the United States bases in the Middle East also went on alert. Exactly.
Well, Iran has actually just extended this airspace closure. This airspace closure now covers Thursday, at least for now. And it's already around 6 in the morning for them right now. So they've already avoided an attack, at least for this past night. And well, they've obviously extended this notice until Thursday for security reasons. They haven't explained anything, likely due to their tensions with the United States. According to a notice to pilots, the closure was expected to last until 7:30 a.m. local time. So in about 2 hours, it would actually reopen, more or less. And there was a previous order for this interruption, which lasted more than 2 hours, partly during the early morning when it was closed. And well, according to reports,
they extended it.
They extended it, yes. The Iranian regime has not provided details about the decisions to keep the airspace closed, and well, that's all. Obviously, everything indicates that it's because of the United States issue, obviously.
Sure. Or do we need to remember when the airspace was closed back when the attacks happened? Did Iran close its airspace before the June attacks? You could see the situation coming, and now there's the airspace issue. In any case, the ones who closed it were Israel. More than the United States, it was Israel because Israel was the one that attacked the drones, the one that attacked the missile launchers. All of this was disabled within a matter of hours, mainly with drones and with intelligence inside Iran. On this occasion, well, the airspace closure up to now at this hour, which is 9 o'clock in Mexico City, is still closed, right? We need to check the current time in Iran.
Tell us, since it's 6 in the morning?
It would be around that time. Look, there's a plane. That's a plane. It's definitely a plane.
I did it for an hour. The airspace opens soon unless they extend it, so watch.
That's a plane that looks like it's Iranian. No, it doesn't look military. So at least there's already someone flying there and there are several planes. Yes.
I think those who already had, let's say, prior permission could arrive.
Well, actually, it's an Iranian company. All 3 planes are from the same company called Mahan Air. I suppose that's Iranian, right? But we need to check where this one is from and where the company is based. There's another plane to the north. It's this one. This one is from AVA Airways. This one, I don't know which country this one is from, but anyway, this one too. It doesn't specify the destination. It left Urmia, but the exact location isn't mentioned. There are several planes. Even though you see it like this on flight radar, you have to zoom in a little because there are some planes that don't show up from far away, so to speak. So there's not much movement there, but there is some activity in this airspace closure they have. Western military officials warn of signs suggesting a United States attack is imminent. Although the Trump administration maintains the strategy of being unpredictable, of generating uncertainty, of saying, "I've already been told that the Ayatollahs are getting the message, they're calming down, they're no longer attacking the population." No one actually believes that, but Trump always brings it up like he wants to make friends. The point is, he always uses the same strategy. Is he meeting Maria Corina? Yes. And what does he do the day before? He talks to Delcy. And what did Delcy say? I didn't really get along with Delcy. Everything is fine with Venezuela. He's still going to talk to Zelensky. And what does he do a day before? He talks to Vladimir Putin? No, the call was great. He didn't tell me any jokes, but it was awesome. I mean, he always does the same thing. So he puts pressure by talking to, like, he's going to talk to you, but first he talks to the one who speaks badly about you, right? Yeah.
And I'm really going to like him?
And I'm really going to like him. And I'm really going to get along with him. And well, that's how he creates.
That nervousness and insecurity, ultimately. That's what he wants, to have an insecure person he can deal with so he can get what he wants. Yes?
The point is, those are already numbers, so no longer. Discussing numbers about Iran is difficult right now, mainly due to failed internet issues. Yes, we can, well, what is known for sure, especially because it's a leak that comes from within the Iranian government. Well, it's about these 2,000 deceased, but the numbers, which are probably the real ones, are many more people who have lost their lives. Yes, missing people, people who are also detained, and who, as is known, are on the execution list. The parents of this young man came out, the one they're going to start with because he's one of the leaders, let's say, of these protests, and they're going to start with him. Well, to say, look, if you lead this, we're going to start with you. So, the parents believe that, well, this young man has his hours numbered, right? Obviously, this idea that Trump is putting out there that there are no more executions or that there won't be any more executions, well, that's not believable in any sense. I don't see the Iranian regime making any moves. What I do believe is that, unlike Venezuela, this is a regime that has really invested in it. Since the late 70s, around 1979, when the revolution began, they started arming themselves, right? And little by little, they've been investing more and more, putting a lot into missiles. They have a space program. Come on, yes, there's a chance they could surprise us, right? At this point, obviously they won't call it sabotage, and maybe it's not. I can't say it's sabotage. But the Verizon issue has been ongoing for 12 hours and still isn't working. In many of the places where the outages are happening, not everywhere, but in many of the places where the outages are, they're reporting it. The signal from several phone companies in the United States is still failing, where there are millions of people who can't get in touch or whose systems are not working. You say, I don't think these things are coincidences, right? I mean, because we've been following this for years and it's always like this, like clockwork. There's trouble with some country or some power. The failures start, the problems begin, it starts. Or that, well, hybrid warfare is becoming more and more obvious. Not exactly, although obviously you can't be sure. No.
I never told you that. Plus, governments never guarantee anything on that subject. They'd rather call it a mistake than admit a system weakness. Exactly.
Exactly, they always prefer that. They always prefer that. And only later admit if there was sabotage, then yes. But at the time, they never consider it as possible sabotage. It catches my attention since we're not dealing with a strong solar storm or anything similar. Why are these failures happening? Is it a hack, sabotage, or something else? What was the problem? For example, we haven't had that problem here in Mexico, nor have we reported it in other parts of Latin America or in Canada. No, I mean the problem in the United States, possibly near Canada. There could be some issues because sometimes they're the same companies, but other than that, so far, no, it doesn't seem like there's anything serious. I expected it to be resolved in an hour or two, but it won't be. Several communities here are also in the United States. Let us know if it failed for you. Here we've received some reports from New York that it did fail for them. I don't know if by now they've already restored service to the community that's connected through Verizon or all these companies. No, but anyway, let's move on to other matters. Let's move on to other important topics as well. Because in Greenland, things are also starting to happen. In Greenland, things are already, well, they're really heating up, so to speak. Hey, in Greenland, there are 5 countries right now that are already reinforcing, that are sending troops. We're talking about France, Sweden, Great Britain, Norway, and Germany, which have confirmed that they have sent troops to this island, to this place that, well, obviously Trump currently has kind of in check, right? Thinking that maybe there could be a military operation from the United States. He said it himself, didn't he? So are they planning to take it by force or peacefully?
Exactly. This is a historic deployment in the Arctic. Denmark requested military reinforcement from its European allies in Greenland, and this has triggered the military movements we've seen in recent days. It's the largest in the region in recent times, and this measure is taking place as part of an operation called Operation Arctic Resistance. The 5 countries participating are European countries. The United States is not excluded. Obviously, it's involved as well. France, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and the United Kingdom signed to deploy troops. I believe Swedish troops arrived today. Each group is quick.
Unlike with Ukraine, where actions happen months after being announced, this isn't the usual case.
Yes, no, this is already happening here.
They do it quickly, exactly.
Each one has a specific role in the operation, and it includes, for example, reconnaissance, patrolling, and cooperation with the Danish defense. By the way, today when this group of diplomats went to talk about Donald Trump regarding Greenland, did they remind him at the end that he has the press conference? In the end, this territory is covered by Article 5, and well, it could have caused the conflict. And also, the journalist reminded him, because Trump says if we go to war, Denmark would never support us. They also reminded him that Denmark was in Afghanistan when the United States needed support.
Or if you already have history, Germany was helping him too.
Ukraine.
United Kingdom? Well, so let's go to the countries. Yeah, I mean, Sweden. So what's their,
Sweden? The Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, was the first.
The first to send people.
Was the first to announce this deployment. I think it was yesterday when he detailed, last night he explained the integration of his troops and the coordinated multinational operation. The United Kingdom, which is acting like the United States, is taking a role that the United States used to have with John Healey, the British Defense Minister, who revealed that his country's actions basically respond to a shared interest with the United States to secure the region from movements by Russia and China, because they are succeeding. For their part, Germany is sending tactical equipment. Berlin is more or less deploying 3 specialists in reconnaissance in Nuuk, which is the capital of Greenland, to assess future contributions. For example, in surveillance and logistics. Meanwhile, France, Macron's devil, confirmed its military participation but refused to reveal, for example, the exact number of troops or the detailed purpose of that country's mission, although it reaffirms its commitment.
It is also noteworthy in Norway that Minister Thor Sandivsk reportedly announced that Norway is sending military personnel as part of a security and regional cooperation commitment. And all of this clashes with the narrative that there is insecurity. We're involving 5 countries that have military strength. And among those countries, well, France has nuclear weapons. Just to be clear, there's already a nuclear country involved, besides the fact that there are also United States bases there. But the distrust is so great that what I imagine Denmark doesn't want to happen is that they won't go through with it. Not really a Game of Thrones style move. That then, suddenly, the United States troops might say, well, we're already here, so now we're staying here, and they take everything. While things remain uncertain, Denmark won't take that risk. They went to have a conversation today in Washington, and well, that also draws attention.
They were upset. It was clearly not a good conversation.
That's the expression on both of their faces. The 2 people in charge of visiting Washington and coming out to speak. You just have to look at their faces, but it's a face of annoyance, of anger, of discomfort, let's say. The report from the United States that they sent to them is to control Hollandia to prevent a third world war. The story changes daily. One day it's Dorada leadership, another it's China and Russia, and now there's yet another reason. In fact, what he said, the oil workers, had already given the signal that that's where things are heading.
By the way, there have been purchases by American magnates lately of territories in Denmark, in Greenland, which has attracted a lot of attention. That's a bit of a red flag regarding that topic, they know.
Look, there's the Danish foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, and the Greenlandic one, Vivian Motzfeldt. And you can see their faces, right? Obviously, they announced a formal mechanism for dialogue between Denmark, Greenland, and the United States to resolve disagreements related to security in the Arctic. Rasmussen was clear. Ideas that do not respect the territorial integrity of Greenland are completely unacceptable. Repeating it like a mantra in response to Washington's intentions.
Despite the diplomatic rejection, Trump still expresses personal interest in Greenland, citing his reasons. Reasons that can change depending on the day. And while Minister Vivian Motzfeldt was direct, she said there's no need for the United States to buy us, and that's it. Could she have been more direct?
Rasmussen denied rumors of Chinese military or economic influence, saying they're untrue. He also says Germany and France have begun sending troops to Greenland, meaning they've already given notice. That's something we've already talked about. And what NATO simply says is that the diplomatic shield and the military shield cover all of Greenland, so anyone who invades Greenland gets involved, well, with all of NATO and with the United States and with Canada by law. I mean, it's not a matter of wanting to or not, it's absolutely mandatory. Central conflict. So, well, you say that's the issue, right? If Greenland is protected, then the countries are protected in a military sense. Let's move on to other matters. There's still uncertainty on that issue, and I don't think it's going to change much. But just before anything else, this would be, let's say, the announcement of the itinerary that President Trump and the opposition leader will have there. Maria Corina Machado, and Nobel Peace Prize winner. She will also have a meal, not a breakfast, I think it's a lunch. At 11 in the morning, the door is closed. At 12:30 in the afternoon, midday, behind closed doors. They're meeting soon, as expected, so around there.
Let's see how
A surprise is what's anticipated. There will surely be some kind of surprise. By the way, they've already left from a certain place. But it's a topic that won't be forgotten, no matter how much geopolitical issues are made and undone. The victims come out, the victims of Einstein and everything that happened around that network of abusers, the victims don't come out. Let's see what's happening. Don't forget us. The survivors of Einstein are done waiting, it says. Today, they are formally asking the Inspector General of the Department of Justice to investigate how the Einstein files were published, citing reckless redactions, exposed identities, protections for the alleged perpetrators, or did they protect the perpetrators and expose the victims? Those who shouldn't be there, those who should have been erased because their victims weren't erased, and the perpetrators, those were erased. You think, so what are we talking about here, right? Obviously, they asked for transparency. They asked that they not be. They re-traumatize them. They call it business. And they don't want to be traumatized again by this terrible situation. But anyway, let's move on to other important matters. Thank you. Iran's economy has collapsed, and let's look at some data that shows just how complicated the situation is. For what's happening right now over there in Iran, not just the economy, the value of the rial has simply disappeared. And in light of this, well, let's go over some points that stand out today. Or within, let's say, everything that's happening over there in Iran. One of the most serious points actually sparked the protest. I mean, what really made some of the transport workers rise up first. Not that the protests were more visible there. And then, joining with the other, we could say sectors. The rial in free fall. The Iranian rial would have experienced the hardest depreciation in history, with an exchange rate in the free market reaching approximately 14 to 15 million rials per dollar. Extremely complicated.
And yes, it's a ridiculous thing.
I imagine by now the paper is like what happened with Venezuela. At some point, the paper the bill is printed on must be worth much more than the real itself, right?
Just like pre-World War II Germany, people carried money in wheelbarrows, but prices rose by the time they arrived.
They cost more. I mean, the things they were going to buy. Yes.
They were already worth more, so they couldn't buy more.
Imagine that $1 equals 1/4 of 15 million reais. It's the lowest level recorded, according to what some international reports say. The currency was described as practically worthless against the euro and the dollar, since it's basically traded without value. No, the figure, well, because they have to put it, is symbolic. It's 0.00016. I think that's how it is. I may be off by a few zeros, but the point is there's also hyperinflation. Inflation in Iran has risen to critical levels, with official and market figures hovering around 42% annually. Although in reality they say it's actually over 70% inflation. Just to give you an idea, this is over twice Argentina's inflation, which was much better this year. And it's about half the inflation they've had. Approximately a little less than half the inflation that Venezuela has had this past year, which has also experienced very high inflation. The economy, for a country that not only has oil but also other businesses, we have to remember that practically all the oil they extract is bought by China and India. So yes, they do sell oil. It's still important. And in this situation, it's a society that has had good universities despite the very strong control. Because one of the things that Khamenei said very early on, when he began to take power and all that, was, you focus on studying and developing yourselves, and I'll take care of politics, and he basically took care of that part. And the economy and politics are terribly bad. Strikes, business closures, marches in hundreds of places. I mean, the situation is extremely complicated, and without an economy, it's like, what are you going back to if you leave the protests? What do you go back to the next day? Well, if there's nothing.
No, absolutely nothing. Nothing is moving at all.
And well, let's move on to another important point as well. there's a wave. It wasn't just a single incident of what's happening. There's been a wave of attacks. Meanwhile, right now, there's hardly any talk about Ukraine, but there's a wave of attacks happening. This time, taking advantage of the situation and the fact that the United States has practically forgotten, Donald Trump has been forgetting about Ukraine. This move is happening exactly because of that.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared a state of emergency in Ukraine's energy sector because temperatures are around 20 degrees below zero, and because of the attacks, the electricity supply has been interrupted, leaving people at the mercy of this impressive cold. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said energy imports will also rise for this reason. And Ukraine's energy teams have been working tirelessly to try to keep the power on as much as possible. Despite the attacks, they fix what they can, only to be attacked again. This attack just never seems to stop, does it?
Well, let's get to the topic. On the other hand, the United States Congress has revealed a series of very interesting facts, in which they are showing that the military, economic, and financial ties between Venezuela and China have deepened. A topic that I imagine right now the soup that they must not be letting this Maduro off the hook for. On the topic of China, on the topic of Russia, on the topic of Cuba, on the topic of Mexico, I mean, a lot of topics that I imagine will be revealing some pretty intense information. So, well, pay attention to what's coming in that sense, but let's get into some details because, well, within this, they say it's devastating. Report: the United States Congress reveals that China supplies weapons, technology, and satellite control to the Maduro regime despite international sanctions. The United States Congress publishes this report in which it reveals military, financial, and geopolitical ties between the dictatorship, the regime, let's say, of Maduro, now of Delcy Rodriguez, and, well, China.
Exactly. Well, in 2023, China raised its relationship with Venezuela to the highest level of diplomatic cooperation, calling it an all-weather strategic partnership, which means it supports trade, energy, telecommunications, defense, and politics. And companies like Huawei and ZTE dominate telecommunications in Venezuela. ZTE. It has also created the Carnet de la Patria, used for political control, food distribution data, and social surveillance. Venezuela owes more than 10 billion to China, and these are loans it has had since 2016. China still holds the outstanding debt with Venezuela.
This is a topic we've discussed several times here about the debt Venezuela has with China, a debt that obviously also causes nervousness for the Chinese. If the regime collapses, who will pay me? That's something that's already been discussed in theory, although it's a topic that hasn't been confirmed, but it's known that there have been communications with the Chinese in that regard. China buys between 50% and 89% of Venezuelan oil, meaning that between 50 and 89% of Venezuelan oil, a large part of it arrives disguised through Brazil and Malaysia. Malaysia is still one of the countries that launders the most oil, so to speak, because it launders oil for Iran, it launders oil for Russia, meaning the oil arrives in Malaysia. They mix it with other oil, and that oil avoids the sanctions from the United States and Europe.
Exactly. It's not the only country in debt to China. Anyway, Beijing already built and operates the El Sombrero and Lojepa bases, which can do what they do. Tracking and control of satellites potentially useful for military operations of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Additionally, the report also mentions that during the secret operation on January 3rd, ordered by Trump to capture Maduro, well, the Chinese radars in Venezuela did not detect the United States planes, which raises doubts about whether they are really that effective in military matters. China and also Russia, since Russia was involved and there was no single movement. It's only 11 months. In 2025, bilateral trade between China and Venezuela reached 6 billion with a surplus of 3.8 billion for China. Most of it was in imports, especially petroleum products.
No, just to give you a fact, not really. It's estimated that 400,000 Chinese people live in Venezuela. Yes, I mean those born in China. No. Like here in Mexico, let's say, of Chinese families, like for example in Mexicali, in Sonora. This region has had a Chinese community since the previous century, and even the one before that. If we calculate that, well, I mean Mexico, people who were already born here for generations, who have Chinese origin, we actually have several friends named Chong and others whose families or ancestors were Chinese. Not counting them because they are about 2 million, right? And obviously it's a very large community. If not, I'm talking about Chinese people born in China who speak Chinese and live here. Here in Mexico, there are about 14,000, which is a small number. In comparison, there it's 400,000, enough to fill a city. I mean, there are 400,000 Chinese, of Chinese origin, who went and moved to Venezuela. So there really is a very, very strong interest, right? And, well, that's, let's say, part of those movements. I imagine they're strategic, right? I mean, no, I don't imagine it's like, let's go to Venezuela because maybe there's a business opportunity. In that case, I assume it would be to other countries, right? I imagine this movement must be more about strategy, about other kinds of interests, let's say. But anyway, let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there we are seeing J.D. Vance at the moment when this vote takes place to see if it was possible for the United States to attack Venezuela again. The United States Senate is going to allow another attack on Venezuela to take place. Let's just say that the attempt to limit Trump's military powers in Venezuela has already been blocked by Congress. It was almost a tie. The vote was practically 50-50, and the one who broke the tie was J.D. Vance. Because the vice president, one of the few powers that vice presidents have, is to break a tie vote. It was 50-50, and then J.D. Vance stepped in. He voted in favor of not limiting military action against Venezuela. So what does that mean? In short, what about the United States Senate? Well, now in a new resolution that was made today, January 14th, it allows President Trump to use military forces inside Venezuela. And this, well, is very important because of the challenges as well. When the United States Congress first tried to limit Trump on this issue, it was clear to see how this Diosdado became more defiant. Right? It's odd. Where is Padrino because of this?
Yeah, he hardly ever shows up.
Well,
yes, they already voted. The Republicans had lost it because several Republicans, voted in favor of limiting Donald Trump's power in Venezuela. But today they managed to convince 2 Republicans to come back to the fold. How could it be to vote the same as the others, there was also a lot of pressure from Donald Trump, if you remember. There was an immediate reaction. When this topic was made public as well, and a topic that, we'll talk about a little later, they are also making moves regarding Mexico. The Democrats are trying to do the same thing to prohibit funds for a war against Mexico because of what Donald Trump has said in recent days. To take action against Mexico, he needed authorization from Congress. It's an initiative that responds then to these statements made by Donald Trump, where he claims that there will soon be ground attacks on Mexico. And the Democratic Party legislators presented this bill in the House of Representatives, which seeks to prevent the use of public funds for military action against Mexico if it has not been authorized by Congress. It's an issue that has generated a lot of controversy in the United States. because Donald Trump basically bypasses Congress for everything. Essentially, they could skip work and he would still make all the decisions and observe. This proposal arises as a direct response to the president's comments about the possibility of carrying out operations against drug traffickers in Mexico. But also because lately we've seen a lot of drones moving near the Mexican coasts, which has raised concerns about the possibility of an escalation against Mexico regarding drug trafficking. And since Trump skips over everything, well, the Democrats are trying to protect resources so that there isn't a direct confrontation.
Mexico, there it is. That's also part of the ongoing tug of war with this issue. By the way, on a different note, there's a warning, a health alert. This is for the United States. Let's see what this alert is about. But, well, it caught attention that it's reported that the authorities have issued a series of recommendations for certain areas of the United States. Let's get into the details of what is known in that regard. According to reports, this is for the center of the state of Georgia. Today, January 14th, they received official warnings due to the presence of unusual levels of particulate matter. 2.5 particle pollution, according to data from the Air Now system at the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the Environmental Protection Agency. The Air Quality Index record, the Air Quality Index, according to reports of the high number of particles, increased. Well, the warning was basically to say not to leave the house unless it was necessary, especially for sensitive people, the elderly, children, and those with respiratory or heart conditions. They also asked them to limit physical activity outdoors, obviously. And local and federal authorities reiterated the importance of monitoring these indexes and, of course, following these types of protocols.
Exactly. You have to stay aware of this issue because sometimes governments want to erase this information or want it to be known. But anyway, the measures I recommend are to stay indoors as much as possible, keep doors and windows closed to prevent outside air from coming in. Use these home air purifiers if they are available. Avoid using candles, wood stoves, or other similar sources inside the house. And regularly check the updated information from ERNA and the official Environmental Protection Department channels.
How long will this alert last? Well, so far the authorities have not set a date for when this warning will end. They assure continuous hour-by-hour evaluation 24/7, and depending on how the weather goes, if there's rain, if there's wind, then the environment gets cleaned up and everything is calm again. But anyway, so where can people who are watching us in Georgia or just those who are over there in the United States check this information? On airnow.gov, that's where you can, it's AIRNOWGOV, not AirNow Governor. That's where you can, and there's also an Environmental Protection Agency website. I don't know the exact page, but if you look for the Environmental Protection Agency site, they usually have updates there too. So just in case you have any doubts, right, please check it there. And well, here's this warning that deserves attention. By the way, another thing is if you say, well, I'm not an older person or I don't have respiratory problems. Well, just to clarify, it's not like nothing will happen to you. I mean, even a healthy person. Exactly. I mean, look, here's a fact from them. It says, the last warning they give, it says, continuous exposure to these levels of particulate matter, 2.5, causes irreversible health damage if the recommendations are not followed. So, in the long term, this, well, they say, can also cause a problem with irreversible damage to the respiratory tract, they say. Local hospitals are preparing for a possible rise in respiratory consultations. They note that even if you're healthy now, working outside could change that. Well, put on a mask, right? I mean, in cars, well, not all, but many cars. Where the air conditioning is, it has a filter, and sometimes there are filters. With a very advanced level, this level as if it were a mask, or even more advanced, that's all. You have to keep cleaning it, you have to change it from time to time, so that's also something to consider. Thank you. As I mentioned yesterday, this is based on what a father and his son reported. I have a feeling that we're at a point where many of the great discoveries or inventions that are going to happen won't just come from companies or universities, but will be like this case of a father and son who simply said, let's make the fastest drone, and they did it, right? We're going to see developments suddenly coming from the most unexpected places, bringing impressive inventions and advancements. Because information flows better and better, because people are realizing more and more that you can do things, that you can start projects that seem impossible. And this time, a father and son have made the impossible drone, a drone that goes 650 kilometers per hour. We're talking about a drone that reaches an impressive speed. This duo is from South Africa. I also mentioned that more countries will start appearing, not just the usual ones like China, the United States, or Germany. No, other countries will start appearing. Right here in Latin America, in Africa, and so on, with very interesting inventions and developments. They broke the Guinness record with this before this invention.
Exactly. The drone is called Peregrine Big 4, and it was created by the South Africans Mike Bell and his son Luke. It reached a speed of 65,759 kilometers per hour, setting this new record. Guinness with a quadcopter drone, and it's the fastest in the world. Obviously, and well, this feat was achieved by this father and son team who spent years independently developing this drone. And well, basically they make it at home and everything. It breaks the previous record, which was also an Australian model called Blackbird by Benjamin Biggs, which at the time reached a pretty high speed. But it's not the first time they've achieved these records. The Bell family had already achieved the record of 480 kilometers per hour in 2024 and 585 kilometers in June 2025.
It's crazy, honestly. This is really crazy, but well...
They printed it at home. By the way, a 3D printer, just imagine exactly, yes. The printer is called Bamboo Lab H2D, an aerodynamic one-piece design to avoid any hassle, and the engine has 4 T-motor 3120 brush motors with 900 kb. Well, impressive.
These are the things you learn about when someone enters a contest, attends an exhibition, or sets a Guinness record. But how many things are being developed that we'll never find out about? I mean, things that are being developed and would surprise us just the same. It's impressive watching it move through a desert or along the beach, an amazing coastline and evolution. So you're there standing and suddenly something just happens and you call Mausan, right? Elisa just saw an unidentified flying object. It's someone or a drone from there. Impressive, right? How could a camera even capture it? If you took a picture, how would you catch it? Like a line? You just wouldn't say, hey, what is this? I mean, it wouldn't surprise you, of course. You could detect the sound, that it's a drone, right? Or the buzzing it makes. But anyway, well, it's amazing what they do. Let's move on to another topic, which is also important. Well, let's move on to other important matters about what's happening in the world. There are several topics that we need to look at, images that have surprised us today. One of them is this one precisely, where you start to see the exit. Not of these planes, where apparently they would be carrying personnel that they are moving, that they are taking out from there, from Qatar. It's a topic we talked about this morning. Another interesting topic today is this one, this document that's being shown, right? We also talked about it a while ago, about documents that were declassified from Operation Absolute.
To figure out exactly where they said, careful, the tough one is Celia, not Maduro, not Nicolas.
The tougher, more intense one in the relationship is Celia, the wife. And that also, well, confirms what was always said. People always talked about that. Yes,
Yes, yes, it's just that the images, well, the ones we saw, right? Venezuelan television, well, it was the image of the wife and the little one next to her, right? But Venezuelans always asked us, but is she tough? Not exactly, yes, yes. In fact, the arrest report says, be careful, she's the tough one and might defend herself or something similar.
Look, check this out. This image is amazing, historic from my point of view of what's happening over there in Iran. According to the reports, this is reported, if I'm not mistaken, by Visegrad 24, and what it shows is the death, the burial, not the funeral, of a person named Elireza Seidi. Yes, she was buried today, January 14th. So, what they're reporting is about the town, not the small village where they lived. They went to the burial. All the people gathered there, the whole town came together, or at least a good part of it. And they started shouting in unison, "Let Ali Khamenei die, death to Ali Khamenei," they said. A large crowd from his hometown attended his funeral, chanting, "Death to Ayatollah Khamenei." Let's listen to part of that moment. Tremendous, tremendous. This is really something. This person, Elireza Seidi, was reportedly killed by the forces of the Islamic regime while protesting for a free Iran in the streets of Abdanan. When the people of the city or the town found out, they went to the funeral and started chanting. I mean, people are extremely upset, they're really angry, and, well, the situation is already out of control, right? Or is it really a serious issue? And what could Masoud Pezeshkian be doing since it's been about 5 days that he hasn't shown up, you say? How can this be happening? That they're already warning about a possible war, and yet the nation doesn't come out to send a message to Masoud Pezeshkian? The president doesn't speak, doesn't say anything. There's talk of a possible resignation. Ever since it was said that he was going to resign, nothing has been heard.
Since Saturday, basically nothing has been heard from him. He was supposed to come out and give a message, but it didn't happen. For their part, the people who are in Iran say that the security presence in the streets, especially in the main cities, has been greatly reinforced. There is control to prevent more protests. There is talk of patrols of checkpoints that are there all the time. An increase in deployments of military police in urban centers and constant checks in hospitals. They are hunting those who have already been injured during these protests to take them away. They find out since life is pretty slow. Many stores are still closed and the streets quieter than usual. Well, even though no curfew has been declared, they're essentially under one.
Exactly, no. And well, right now Reza Pahlavi comes out, or rather Reza Pahlavi appears, and he also delivers a very powerful message. Let's see if I can, he says. He makes a statement about the potential fall of the Ayatollah's regime, in which he also talked about security and foreign policy. He says Iran's nuclear military program will end, support for terrorist groups will stop immediately. In other words, there will no longer be proxy wars, he says. A free Iran will partner regionally and globally to combat terrorism, organized crime, drug trafficking, and extremist Islamism. He also says relations with the United States will be normalized and our friendship with its people restored. Israel will be recognized immediately, and we will work to expand the Abraham Accords into the Zero Accords, uniting a free Iran, Israel, and Arab world. Hopefully that message reaches the people of Iran. Let's see their thoughts and feelings about this situation.
Today, all bunkers in Israel were prepared and ready for an attack.
Especially in the southern part.
Yes, well, by late afternoon, a good part of them were already open, okay? The United Kingdom also raised the alert and advised against traveling to Israel. This topic raises the question, if the United States attacks, who will Iran target? Most likely, Israel.
That could be one of their targets, along with Qatar, since it hosts the largest United States military base. Let's move on to the comments. Let's move on to the comments. There have been some estimates about how much Greenland would cost, right? And basically, it would be impossible to buy it, even if they tried. I mean, even if Greenland said, okay, buy it. This would be more or less the price. How much did you estimate?
Roughly calculated or estimated, right? That's $700 billion, half the Department of Defense's, or rather Department of War's budget. It's not called that anymore. I don't know. It's not enough for them. They'd have to take it by force. Well, and how much does it cost you besides to attack it? I mean, what's the military expense?
I think the expense is worse. I think it's much worse because your economy also ends there in terms of everything you sell and buy. For Europe, well, there would also be a blockade. I mean, this situation is really strange. Obviously, other things would happen internally in the United States before this could happen, right? I mean, I'm saying there would be a lot of pressure on President Trump from business owners from different sectors. Just imagine, business owners trading with Europe would say, don't risk my business. That could influence politicians.
Yes. The truth is that the population of Greenland is really nervous about the issue. Yes, are they taking it seriously? And what worries them the most is that if they end up being occupied or bought or whatever, well, that life will be integrated, they say. We don't want the violent culture of the United States.
Who is it? If not, I mean, they just aren't interested.
Their ice to be destroyed, for example, it's like that. Their culture is super different. Yes.
So imagine if they suddenly decide to start fracking here. Let's see how that turns out. Raoul Sachs says, not in world tourism. In Greenland, it's worth nothing.
Well...
And what about Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia is really expensive. Which one is the most expensive? Well, if it's Ethiopia, but let's see if anyone remembers. Which country is the most expensive?
Do you remember one of the most important ones? Is it Kachamka in the game of Risk? No, we're not talking about that, but in the game Turista, I don't even like it. I don't even remember.
We're talking about Turista?
I just don't remember. Without the game, I don't like it because Pepe always wins.
But anyway, which are the most expensive countries?
I don't remember, she says.
This one. Let's see.
Let me check the internet.
How have you been? Good evening. Very good, it says. Thank you, Novak's dad. How are you? Greetings to Novak's dad. Not from the future. I think there will be a little more time. Marcela, how are you? Greetings to Chile. Thank you, Gabriel Dario, for the like. 67. How did the United States seize something by force? That has never happened. When has it? Greetings, 67. Says Narnia. The priciest one says, talk to me nicely. In other games, it's from Vic. How have you been? Greetings, William. How are you? How have you been? Says, greetings from Peru, Narnia. Alquileño was rented by Rent Him for 100 years. Didn't you want one of the proposals?
Not among the most expensive tourist destinations. The most expensive are Switzerland, Australia, United States, and Antigua and Barbuda.
No, they're not referring to the Turista board game.
They're not talking about the tourists, no?
No, this isn't about tourism.
Yes, about the board game Turista. No, then?
No, that's not what it's for.
Ah, okay.
It hurt him. I read about it, not sure where.
It's the board game?
Yes, I have everything and have played for a long time. No, I'm a professional and it's not old. For example, Bermuda.
Well, it depends on the game. There are many versions of the game. No, which one did you play to look for the tourist version?
The only one there is?
Fernando Editorio?
You gave it, says Cleo. How have you been? Regards, Cleo Vasquez. Very good from Gires, says the Riz. The best of the board game says, hey, do you play? The one called... The one with dragons, Dungeons and Dragons. This Gires has already become an expert there. Like, what's it called? Stranger Things, yeah.
Yes, I know versions differ. Some list the United States and Japan as most expensive. Others say Canada and Mexico. I think it's Fernando's, the editor's version. Frame isn't called Frame. Mexico is the most expensive because it's from Mexico.
No, it's fine, Mali says. You can do the third one. What is it? Daniel, oh, you mean the Third World War? Well, let's hope not. I think Trump's warning is just for negotiation, as always.
He's acting like Putin.
No, it's still the same. Only Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump talk about the Third World War. For everything, when they want to negotiate, they pull out the old reliable, right? Which is, well, talking about the Third World War. It's news, of course, because when leaders like Putin or Trump discuss the topic, it naturally becomes news. We also need to clarify that, right? I mean, this is clearly about one of the greatest fears humanity has right now, which is the Third World War. Not just saying, I use this and put pressure so that obviously it's not going to happen. I mean, no, because you're playing with, in theory, not with diplomats who already know how this works. That kind of thing that Putin used for too many years to make it believable. Besides, no, there's no reason or sense in saying that taking Greenland would prevent a world war. I mean, if you say it's going to prevent one, well, maybe there isn't one. I mean, no, I'm just going to ask you, explain to me why. Why would it prevent World War III? Well, I wouldn't know what to tell you. I mean, no, there wouldn't be any kind of reason. I mean, the only thing I could say is I'm going to protect myself from World War III. No, you guys are going to...
El Frank Games. Hi, Pepe. I already heard on Noticiero Mexico here that they say Iran has nuclear weapons. I don't know if it's true or if they're exaggerating. They don't have nuclear weapons yet.
You guys?
Yes, they had material, but they still needed to enrich it to the point of a nuclear weapon. But then there was the 12-day war, and well, nobody knows what happened there anymore.
Not exactly what's happening now. Yes, well, if this keeps moving forward, they might possibly develop them. They have material enriched to 60%. As far as is known so far from the International Atomic Energy Agency, according to the investigation, they didn't have.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, or they had. Because we have to remember that in June, there were shots fired at several of the nuclear facilities that were under 100 meters, right? So they destroyed them. There was, in theory, about 400 kilos of radioactive material there. Enough for 10 nuclear weapons. In any case, if it gets enriched to 90%, and in any case, if they develop the weapon, because having enriched radioactive material is useless by itself. If you don't have the weapon that creates the implosion, then you can't generate the chain reaction. This nuclear issue isn't present. So far, there's nothing reliable, nothing that could, because here we follow all the intelligence reports. And up to now, there isn't any intelligence report that confirms something like that. Not even that they're close.
Says Polyprin, Switzerland is the most expensive one, probably because of the country it is. Greetings to Rabios. It was a country that was, because it's not neutral anymore. They're already investing a lot in weaponry. They've sent things to Ukraine, etc. They've put sanctions on Russia, says Raoul Sachs. Study Iran's history from the Persian Empire to grasp the conflict. The Shah of Iran, grandfather, father, and son is a key figure, says Raoul Sachs. Greetings, Raoul.
Cheers, Raoul.
To Christy, how are you? Hi to Cleo Vasquez, too. Vic is here and jokes about accepting a post-dated check. Hello, and greetings to Eliseo, who mentions the welder's 3 M's. Wait, are they discussing something else?
They're going to issue the $1 trillion bill. I don't know what else they're going to do. But a dollar that's worth $700 billion like Mr. Burst Award did.
Yes, it really was $1 trillion?
Not $1 trillion.
Does Anderlecht follow a tradition? With that, greetings to William and greetings from Peru, Greenland. Rent the church, they stop for 100 years. Greetings to Gabriel Dario. I'm really high up, so I'm coming down. Also, greetings to Jazz Milwaukee. If we're in danger, how many casualties are in Iran? That's the question? Well, look at the government. The government says, well, right now this guy Garage came out on Fox. They interviewed him and he says there are a few hundred, just a few. Yesterday, a government insider leaked that the number is over 2,000. But according to some NGOs, they believe it could be more than 20,000.
Yes, the latest figure from the NGOs is around 50,000.
There are 50,000?
They were talking about it this morning, but in the end, these are figures that are impossible to confirm. So right now, the closest figure to reality must be those 2,000. I mean, the confirmable reality, not the actual reality. Obviously, it's known that there are many more, but the names were listed there, and the names of those who gave the orders for the attacks were also there. The descriptions are really harsh, and well, time will tell, right? Time will tell.
It's a tough situation. Today, a video was uploaded of a guy from Iran who was fleeing. Yes, he was already at the border and said the numbers were impressive. So, are the military really harsh with the protesters? Greetings to Marcela Riquelme, he says. I have no idea where things with Trump, Putin, the Ayatollahs, and other dictators will lead. The world is upside down. Greetings, Marcella.
Greetings, Marcella. Very good, Edilcia. How are you? How have you been? He says. Very good, Raoul Sachs.
Greenland is only a few kilometers from the United States. It's not far since you just crossed Canada.
No, Greenland is really far away.
It's very far. We're closer to Alaska, which they should protect well, and it goes on.
Let's go to the map. Why are we messing around here, right? I mean, let's go to the map so you can see how far away it is.
Yes, the United States has military bases in Greenland.
Look, the closest it could be would be, well, Cameron, Maine on this side. All of this is Canada, so it's really far away. I mean, here is the United States. This is the border of the United States. At about this distance, the United States would be, wow, about 4,000 kilometers away. That's really far. Wait, another point? If it's from Alaska, that's even worse. It's like 8,000 or 9,000 kilometers. Honestly, it's much harder to calculate from there. Let's see, from Alaska to Greenland. Let's say there are some Greenland islands around here. Okay, there it is. This is the distance between Alaska and Greenland, thousands of kilometers. Here is the United States. Yes, let's set this side here, divided on the map for clarity. Here's the Canada border. This is Greenland. It's very far away. Let's not be fooled by the map. It's really huge. What else?
Super far away. Greetings, let's see who's here. Polly Prince says, okay. Not even those two former presidents, Donald and Putin, bring up World War when there are political, social, or economic problems. Yes, they already know, the classic, as they say, reliable. Greetings to Tavis. Trump will attack after markets close Friday. Greetings, says Tavis.
It could be, I mean, that's something that could be calculated, right?
Greetings to Puff, who agrees. In Mexico, there are more than 100,000 and no one complains. What do you mean? Puff, what? Over 100,000 what? Greetings to Gerardo, he says. Actually, World War III would be a relief with the way things are. Everyone threatening each other. Greetings, Gerardo.
Greetings, Gerardo. Very good.
He says, where do they put them? Over 50,000 dead. He says 67. They just bury us.
Imagine that, right? Well, I mean, look, here it is to see it even more clearly, right? I mean, the map issue. Here's Greenland, there's the United States. Just to make it clearer, so the distance is more obvious. To talk about the distance, well, or the closest point between Greenland and Alaska, for example, it would be about 2,000 kilometers. I thought it was much more, you know? 2,000 kilometers is impressive, about the distance from here to Monterrey or Cancun. And then from Maine, in the United States, to Greenland, which is this point, like I was saying about Maine, from Maine to Greenland, this distance is about 3,200 to 3,500 kilometers. Yes, except right here, Alaska.
Even though Alaska is closer?
It's closer over here by Alaska, which is only 2,000 kilometers. On a flat map, you can't really see it that way, right? Yes, of course, but if we look at the real map, it's much closer, right? So, well, even so, it's 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers from the continental area, let's say, from the continental United States. It's 3,200 kilometers away. No, just to make that part clear.
And Alaska to Russia?
From Alaska to Russia? Go ahead then. Make sure for me, let me check. Okay, from Alaska to Russia, 50 kilometers. Yes, I thought it was from Greenland to Russia, but no, from Alaska to Russia, it's 50 kilometers. If we go to the map and zoom in, here is the division. They're close together. One island belongs to Russia, another to the United States, and is the third Mexico's or not? Sorry, from Mexico and Russia, not the United States. And well, they have their division there. Okay, so here's the division and here are the islands. So the distance is approximately about 50 kilometers. They're really neighbors, you know. Alaska to the United States.
He says, Milwaukee. Look, the Brazilian series is really good. It's called The Brazilian. It's called The Antichrist or something like that. Greetings, Milwaukee.
I'm going to check it out.
Greetings to Christy, who says, there is Christy, it moved on me. Hello, Christy. If I see your message, I'll read it. Christy says the real motive is resources, not geopolitics. Greetings, Christy. Exactly. Martin Pepe adds, place your bets. The invasion of Groenlandia will occur by the 31st or in February. Is he getting a taco tostada or something else? Greetings, Martin.
I mean,
If he doesn't realize it, how is he? The level of support in the United States is really low on this issue.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think he really abandons it, but I don't know if he actually does because maybe he just wants to distract from something else.
that could be too.
Or separate NATO. What the heck does he want? Regards.
This is the actual size of Groenlandia, just to clarify, because Groenlandia might seem huge, right? But look, this part in blue. Is Groenlandia shown on maps in schools the same way everywhere? So this is its real size, right? Counting the ice and counting everything, right? I mean, the actual size is like this. It's just that they put everything wrong on the map, because all the northern countries are stretched out on the map. Which is also wrong, right? If you look, the size is almost the same as Mexico. It's just a little bit bigger than Mexico. Groenlandia, no, that's also an interesting topic. If we look at it, for example, over the United States, this would be more or less the size of Groenlandia. But it's still huge, right? It's big.
Not immense because it looks like a continent.
Exactly. Not as immense as many people think, or as it usually seems.
Says Daniel Ramirez. He's asking what the weather will be like. They're saying the vortex turned around and it's true that it's going to be very cold in Mexico.
Yes, it's going to be cold. Yes, it's going to be cold. Somewhere around the 20s. Let's see. Let's check as I want. Let's look at the map quickly. Let's see what's happening. Let's check this quickly just to see the temperatures and look at it day by day. Yes, and let's see how this is going. There it is. This is today. The 14th and 15th, the early morning of the 15th. There it is, right? The early morning of the 15th and 16th. This is the coldest part that's moving down toward the northeast, right? Heading to New York and all those states. Around the 20th, look, we'll see it right now. This is the 16th, the 17th, the 18th. Notice how it's moving down toward Mexico. So by Saturday, right?
Well, the 17th.
No, this Saturday the 17th. Yes, this Saturday.
17. I thought it was 24, but that's the time.
Yes, the exact time. No. Saturday the 17th and the other Saturday the 17th, 24. Yes, but not this one. Starting from the 17th, it's going to be really cold. I mean, here in Monterrey, for example, it's going to be around 3 degrees. Oh, wow, it's going to be cold this weekend.
No, let's make soup.
We should make soup, exactly. We should make pozole.
No, the last time they said to make pozole, it was all left over.
No, pozole, no. What are you saying? And then on Sunday, 4 degrees. This is on the 19th. Well, yes, and if we look at it for the center of the country, well, it's about the same. The center of the country will also be around a single digit, more or less, if we look at the 16th. No, it's not that cold. Well, I mean, it's still cold anyway, but yes. And then when we get to the 20s, once we get into the 20s, the weather gets a little better. But notice how this possible vortex keeps dropping, which could happen here and there, from the 20th to the 21st. 22, 23. Now the vortex isn't in the 20s anymore. It just stays. Let's see, since we're a bit ahead of ourselves. 25, 26. How far can I go? 29, 27. Look at the 27th. Apparently it'll even be warm that day. Isn't it in Mexico? Is that interesting? Actually, the coldest days seem to be the 17th, 18th, and then the 29th. Supposedly the cold is coming again. Look, there it is. That would be a cold of 0 degrees, right? I mean, at least for the northeast, right? And this could reach Mexico. I can't see any further than that. But apparently starting from the 20th. It seems like it's going to be more inland, the 17th, 18th actually, and 7, 18. It's going to be colder, and as you've seen in past years, it's also going to be intense for the northwest. No, well, almost everywhere, honestly, I know it's going to be pretty cold.
Says Nova. While everyone is looking at Greenland, the United States is getting ready to invade Mexico from Querétaro to Yucatan, right where the major oil fields are located. Greetings, this isn't something that's just going to blow over, but I do think, they're using it to distract from other things or something like that, but wow, I don't know if they grab them all and it's enough, to separate from the other one. Well, from taking the focus off Ukraine and shifting it somewhere else, but Mexico, no, I don't think so, says Raul Sachs. It's a world map where it looks bigger than the United States, and that's not true, says Raul Sachs. Greetings, Raul.
Greetings, how have you been exactly? Exactly?
Pepe greets Maxi Ponchelas. In a hypothetical war between the United States and Russia or China, many of the missiles would pass through Greenland, which is why they want to control it. Well, do you have missiles in Greenland? No.
The United States already has defense systems in Greenland, so you don't need them.
And they can put more?
They already have permission to add more missiles, so the defense issue, since missiles have passed through there for years, was settled long ago. And the radars and missiles and everything are already there. It's not like they don't have permission, they already have them there. Well?
I mean, imagine that your neighbor has a house with a guest house that says you can come in whenever you want, you can use it, you can throw parties, they're not going to charge you anything. You're still stubborn about taking the house Luis gave you? Anyway, greetings from Aurelio Garcia. To have the moral right to intervene in Iran in defense of the population that was killed, you'd need to avoid doing what Trump does with immigration and customs enforcement to migrants and citizens. Regards, Aurelio.
Hello, how are you, Aurelio? Very good.
Today I remembered you, Aurelio. Because the man who was arrested for passing information from Iraq about the invasion of Venezuela is also named Aurelio, but Aurelio is something else. He sold information to the media. Wow.
And he's under arrest?
He's under arrest?
Yes, exactly.
Greetings to Gloria Yolanda.
Greetings, he says. From Guadalajara, says Donovan Carrillo, the skater leading the Mexican team at the Winter Olympics. Ah, interesting, from Guadalajara.
Yes.
How interesting, that's great.
He's the first Mexican to compete again because no one has ever repeated at the Olympics.
That's great, I hope he does well. When are the Winter Olympics?
There are still 2 years left, right? Yes.
He says, with Mexico, I don't think he'll dare to really get involved. They know the cartels are just as armed as the American military. They even sell to them themselves, he says. Christy, how are you, Christy? He says, and analysts have discussed that topic.
Yes. I made a video about that once and they said it was very difficult to begin with because Mexico is very big, a huge territory.
70% is mountains and mountain ranges. 70% of the country is mountains and mountain ranges.
That's already a very big difficulty. Yes, and they said it would be a war very much like, what's it called, Vietnam. I mean, it would be a lot of guerrilla warfare. It would be complicated long term.
He says. And besides, he would have a neighbor, an enemy country. Yes, it would be very complicated. That's why I say no, that's not viable, right? He says. Good evening. How have you been, Caribel? Very good, Maria Elena. How have you been? Creator says Greenland is important to the United States because if attacked, it would serve as a main shield. Well, it's already their shield. It already is. Creator 22,115, it's already their shield. Or are the bases already there? There? They've always been there. They've been there for decades. So, well, no. In that sense, no, it's not important because it's already there. The base is already set up there. So in that sense, no, there's no difference. No. And they have all the permission and they have the whole partnership there, right? With NATO and all that. So, well, that's what it says. What else?
Greetings to Nova, it says, but the cartels are armed and financed by the United States. It's not surprising that they take their side. Just look at where there are resources for that trick. Greetings, Nova.
Greetings, very good.
He's not from Jalisco, but he trains there.
This year is the Olympics.
This year, look, yes, I already lost count this one. My favorite is Bob's, the funniest one. Greetings to Leonardo. Greetings, Leonardo.
Greetings, Leonardo. Very good, says Nova, says. But the cartels are organized and financed by the United States, he says. It's not strange that, no, that's what he says. Yeah.
Okay.
This is what Pepe still says. He asks if there might be psychotronic weapons on military satellites, he says. Everyone wonders about that. Well, obviously there's always conspiracy theories in that sense. That yes, that there are, that I don't know. Well, who knows, right? But what has been said is that there might be, right? The intention, or maybe they already exist. Lasers, right? But no, that doesn't count as a psychotronic weapon, he says. What else does he say? Trump is the least interested in the issue of the two. And well, no, it's not really a topic that moves him much, right? He says. Maybe Trump knows something about that island we don't? Pepe mentions the Atlas Eon 100 topic saying, it could be. He adds as a spoiler that you're going to lose your mind. He says a few drops of DNA can store more information than terabytes. Greetings, Nova. Of course, we'll be checking them out with pleasure. Greetings.
Francisco Garcia confirms Donovan Carrillo is from Zapopan, Jalisco, the pride of Mexican figure skating. So where did he move to live? Because I remember he went to live somewhere else to skate. But anyway, then he says, greetings to William. He says, I don't think it would be like Vietnam. Now, technology is on the side of the United States. I think in a month they would wipe out all the bad guys, says William. I don't know, William. I don't know. We're talking about wanting to take Mexico, not just the cartels, no.
Yeah, I mean, he says. And besides, well, it's just like always, right? A lot of people think that attacking the narcos who use the weapons will control that, and that's totally false. What you control is just the people who have weapons. But trafficking still continues, and despite all that's been invested and done, it persists. The numbers show that since the 80s it's still being sold, and increasing year after year, more coke, more. Yeah. It's not like, oh, well, there was a drop in the 80s and then years went by without cocaine or anything like that. No, you can see how year after year it keeps selling more and more and more, and you think, well, how? At what point are they going to realize that they have to address the consumption? Go and talk to people, make them aware, and so on, work on that part of the consumption. Because as long as there are consumers, it's going to come, it'll arrive from whatever country you want, but it'll get here. And the numbers show it. How many billions have they spent on this? Still nothing. There are more options now, so even though that one increased, choices have also grown.
There are a lot.
It's crazy. It really is, like he says. Urania has rare earths, and does it say anything about gold or anything underground? Yes, it has rare earths. It does have some rare earths. They think it would be very difficult to extract them because they're radioactive. They wouldn't be feasible for normal use. So there are problems there too. No, it's not as easy as just going for the rare earths and that's it, right? It could take decades to benefit from resource issues in that sense. No, they don't really sound like it, but who knows, says Nicolas Teologia. They've never won a war by strength, always relying on things outside battle laws, he says.
Greetings, the ones that...
Greetings to the best ones.
Panterita, how's it going? You say? Good night, beautiful chat. I just arrived and don't want to give a crazy opinion. I'm from up above. Greetings to you.
Greetings, Cebola and Martin Gutierrez. How have you been? He says if this targets cartels, hatred toward gringos will unite, dating back to the theft of Mexican territory. And I do think that would awaken Latin American hatred against the United States. It's a problem that even military intelligence has already warned about. That it's not in your best interest to create neighboring enemies if you want prosperity and a peaceful country. It's better to be friendly, let's say, with those next to you. Be careful, he says. Pepe, he says. There's no way. It's like the weapons. It'll be impossible, he says. Tapatia. Greetings, Tapatia. Greetings, Tapatia. How have you been?
Yes, Christian. Common drugs like water and marijuana are the smallest issues. Remember the opioid drugs, which are the real problem, and others as well, of course?
Exactly, he says. The reality is they use bad companies, yet are more ethical than regular people, he says. That's another point, and it's not an excessive consumption. This one is tough,
says Aurelio, and this topic is tough. If you think the World Cup is public like this in the United States, good questions, and they canceled the visa expeditions. Yes, it's impressive how many countries. Pepe had it just now.
But 5 countries?
But they just added another one, another little boy. Among them is, look, here are the extras they just added. So now there are 75. When you said 5, well, I don't think these were here.
You told me they included more. Right now there are 75.
I agreed, but it wasn't listed.
If anyone saw the list, that's why I said yes.
Well, Somalia, Russia, Afghanistan, Brazil, for example. Brazil, how do you deny Brazil? Go to the United States, to Federación Internacional de Fútbol Association. They won't go to Mexico, they'll go to Canada.
Colombia too.
Colombia too, for example. Iran, the players were going to play there, but the Iranians denied them the visa.
That's just how it is, not only for soccer players, but in general.
No, there's no one who doesn't.
Thank you. No.
No, I think people in general too know.
No.
Not good at all. Greetings. It says that a problem that soldiers from the United States have is that they are super comfortable, they tire quickly, and now rely on technology even more.
Greetings to you. Good point about greetings. That's what he says. Where is Elizabeth Lozano? How have you been? Greetings, Elizabeth. Very good, he says. I agree with what the state and the United States did.
That's about the issue of an invasion of Mexico, any attack in the poll that was just done. Regarding what people in Latin America think about what happened in Venezuela, 60% agree.
Okay, greetings, Juan Conejo. Send me the poll, and it would be interesting to analyze it since not all polls are the same. But I think the part that people liked was that they actually captured this person. That's the part that, let's say,
As far as I can remember.
Yes, I think the part that has been most celebrated, which is part of the capture of the dictator, beyond the operation.
Says Fernando Rete. And it could be investigated. How have non-democratic countries like China and Russia advanced compared to democratic countries like Europe and the United States? For China and Russia, each situation is different. They have both already made significant progress. Russia?
No. I mean, Russia is in poverty. Russia is, let's see, look, not even bridges. I mean, come on, they haven't built bridges in 30 years or so. They haven't accelerated the construction of bridges. That's what I've heard. In terms of the number of bridges, they said there are about 1,000 bridges in all of Russia, for example. In China, just building bridges alone. In the last decade, it would be like 15 times what they've done.
They are in Russia?
In 30 years, China's progress in that regard, with a lot of criticism of its system, whether people like it or not is a separate issue. But in terms of progress in technology, infrastructure, and so on, it really is an impressive topic. But in that case, we should also look into South Korea as well. 4,050 years ago, this was an economy that was below many economies in Latin America. And now, where is it? I mean, there were other Latin American economies that were above South Korea, and South Korea, well, it's first world now, so that also shows that it can be done with democracy, it can be done without democracy. I mean, you can also collapse a country with democracy, and you can collapse a country without democracy. There's no single answer. Whether it's democracy or dictatorship isn't necessarily the key to prosperity. Many more factors are involved. He says somewhere.
Russia, except for Moscow and St. Petersburg, is mostly wilderness and snakes. He said that months ago. I saw a video of a woman who said there was a pothole on a road that connects one place to another. She doesn't mention that pothole. If it's been there since Stalin and still isn't fixed, I don't know why. They were serious. It wasn't a joke. She said it's been there ever since. There are even more absurd things. I'm not going to complain to Mexico, she says. No way. Do you really think Mexicans, the citizens, would go up against the American guts? Just for the sake of the politicians, as far as I'm concerned, they can take them all, they say.
Not for the politicians' interest, not because someone would defend the politicians. Nobody is defending them. Nobody would defend them. It's the country.
It's the territory.
It's the territory. Obviously not. And here I have to say I'm glad to see this. Well, most communicators have understood this. Even the most critical of the government and so on, they've said they've seen everything. But that can never be accepted. I mean, that's simply an unacceptable issue, right? It's not about defending politicians. It's about defending your country, which is very different. And that part, well, I think most people have understood it perfectly. Greetings. Okay, JPJS says, well, how have you been? Greetings. Very good. Greetings, he says. If it's sold, we'll be talking about it over there.
He says, China also uses government propaganda rhetoric. 90% of Chinese people are poor. Just remember that China is a country of 1.5 billion. There, everything seems bigger.
Yeah, well, about 90% being poor. Well, I really disagree with that. It has grown a lot. The middle class is not a huge middle class, but they have the largest number of new billionaires in the world. Of course, they still have a lot of problems. There are still many areas with excessive poverty. But also, the issue that has generated one of the biggest increases in, let's say, wages and salaries has come from there. How do you control and make sure a country doesn't get out of hand when there are 1.5 billion people? Aren't you saying that you prefer the Indian version of how things are in India or how things are in China? I think what I'm saying is, when it comes to the number of people, right? When it's such a large number. I was talking about this with someone who brought up this point. Sometimes people want the same solutions for everyone, right? The American way of life, so to speak, doesn't apply to everything, obviously. China has its own way, India has another way, and they each evolve in their own style, at their own pace. The thing is, there isn't just one answer. There's no answer that says this is the absolute truth, because the absolute truth for China is one thing. In South Korea, it's one thing. In North Korea, it's something very different. And I think the biggest problem lies in the excesses of whatever you want, of anything at all. Basically, if you look at Hong Kong, well, it's one of the territories with the freest market in the world, right? It's an excess of free market within a country that absorbs it, but at the same time is both communist and capitalist. I know, and supervised? But there are things where you say there's a very strong repression in China. It's true, it exists and is documented, but do you mention it? Then what about immigration and customs enforcement? No, in the United States, that's repression too. The way they're attacking, not just migrants, we already know how they treat us, but even their own people. Well then, if it's a more complex issue, right? As always, the topic isn't black and white. There are always many shades, as they say. I'd be like Tita's mother in Like Water for Chocolate, armed with her rifle and taking charge. Don't you know anything about the fury of perimenopausal women?
If not...
Well, it is a topic that really resonates with a large part of the country, right? In that sense, it's very clear, as Wilco says. Let's not forget that everyone who did military service is required to be called up by the Mexican army in a war. Otherwise, we would be considered deserters and confined to barracks, says Wilco. That was the point. Greetings, greetings, greetings.
Says Alasso, would United States aggression against Mexico be justified by a few politicians or criminals? They would come for everything, and in that case, yes, they would come out to defend the territory and the country's autonomy. Greetings.
Hello, how have you been? Very good, Adriana Karim Fabi.
Hello, yes, I had issues with my other nickname.
He says, the part about the poor, and they're super advanced, universities, transportation, there are poor people everywhere, of course, but not like we imagine. Come from Maxi, aren't there Mexicans who go there? Greetings, Tapatia. This says, hello, baby, how are you? Karim, how are you? Very good, greetings. Well, so they don't just tell us about it. Are we going to take a trip around the world someday?
Yes, that's better, right? It's just that the numbers from China are complicated because they're given by China, right? The information isn't that clear. They can change them as easily as changing the value.
All the progress they've made is very well documented, obviously, but no one is going to say it's perfect or anything like that. But obviously, achievements like these have been made just like in Singapore or South Korea or other countries, right? He says. Greetings, how have you been, Rolo? All the way to Venezuela, Adriana, very good. How have you been, Karim? Says Trump. Super crazy, thanks to the... Well, guys.
Remember, we're on WhatsApp, Telegram, X, Facebook, Instagram, and we send you shipping notifications.
Thank you very much to the whole community that makes this project, this channel, this news channel sustainable, which has already been around for a few years now, and it's all thanks to this community that supports us. We're very grateful to all our members, Super Chat users, and subscribers. Greetings to Juan Conejo, Yo-Yo, Carlos Alep, and the whole community. I hope you all have an excellent, excellent Tuesday, right? Don't you think? Wednesday, have an excellent Wednesday.
Wednesday, a hug.
Hope you're all well. Let us know if you need anything. See you later. We're interrupting your regular programming. Thank you for
Telling the truth.
This is PP Live.
The truth is intense and harsh. The unusual is real and pure. We analyze it here with a global perspective. Don't miss out. Tune in to the Pepe Live channel, controlling the signal. Pepe and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism. Respect is upheld here. Turn on the alert. Don't lose track until next time. Yes, sir. We're taking attendance. Subscribe. at the house.